Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the Medium's Table. I'm your host, Michelle Gardner. This podcast is your personal invitation to join me at the intersection of the everyday and the extraordinary. Together, we'll explore the magic of mediumship, share spiritual stories, and connect with fellow mediums on this incredible journey. So grab a seat, pour yourself a cuppa, and come join us at the Medium's Table, where spirits gather and stories unfold. Disclaimer, just a heads up to all our lovely followers. Our social media is a space where we share personal stories, including those of various mediums. Let's keep the vibe positive and respect each other's beliefs. Every journey is unique, and here we celebrate the diversity of experiences. I'd like to welcome to the show our amazing panel of mediums for this yet another exciting topic. It's almost like a part two, actually, because we've done a recording of this with another panel of dimensional experiences. Now, it is a popular topic and subject, and this is obvious because you guys are coming in with all these stories. So we know these are not isolated incidences. These are incidences that are happening to many, many, many people. But without further ado, welcome to the show, mediums. And there's silence.
Hi.
I love it, and it makes me laugh because each person's like, are you going to say hello? Do we say something? What are we going to say? Oh, it cracks me up every time. Now, we're going to go around and for each medium to introduce themselves. And this is, like I said, a topic that is, it can have many meanings. You know, what does one person consider dimensional to another? And that's, I guess, where we just lift the lid and see what we uncover. So without further ado, let's start with Annie. Annie, would you like to tell the audience what it is that you do?
Well, I am a psychic medium. I'm also an author of 3 books, and there's a couple more in the cooker right now. Ordained minister through the Order of Melchizedek, and Reiki master teacher. So we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I know. Annie's done previous episodes, and she has a list. Do you have your books there, Annie?
I do have them.
Because I'll pop them up on the screen anyway, regardless.
There's another one, and this one is open because I'm going to be working out of it.
Nice. Excellent. So, yeah, and I do believe you have another one in the pipeline. Correct me if I'm wrong.
There's actually 2 now. I've started a children's book. I don't know how long that's going to be in the cooker, but I've got it started. So
I love that. Yeah, there needs to be more out there for children. Thank you, Annie. Christian.
Well, my name's Christian Williams, and I'm an evidential psychic medium, and I'm also an ordained spiritualist minister. And basically, I do readings for people on a word of mouth basis, but I also occasionally do DEMS and the occasional psychic fair. So that's basically what I do.
Yeah, nice. And Christian's also been on many panels of mediums, as has Annie, and he's also done his own stories, as has Annie and Laura. Carry on. Let's head on to you, Laura, because you've recently just done an episode of your own as well and told your incredible story. So would you like to tell the audience what it is that you do?
Hi, so I'm Laura Lee, and I do evidential, I do trance readings, I do a lot of healing, and healing is really my passion, trance healing. And I've sort of been involved with spirit since a child, and more so sort of in the last 15 years when I was living in New Zealand. Yeah.
And I'll put the links below to everybody's previous episodes so you can go and check them out. Interesting, exciting stories that they have to share with you. But without further ado, let's get on to this topic because I'm finding it very interesting. Like I said, this is like a part 2 of dimensional experiences, and there's been some cracker stories, I can tell you. So, Annie, would you like to share?
I sure will. The first one is something that happened back in Liverpool, New York, where we used to live. Liverpool is just outside Syracuse, and in an urban area. And I loved to go walking in a park, but I didn't really have a park. I had a medical center across the street, but the way they had arranged it was kind of like a park setting. So I would go across the street and walk there when I wanted to, especially on weekends when I could cross the road a little easier. So this one day I decide, a beautiful day, I want to go out and walk. And I cross the road. Now, what is actually there are different ponds and gardens and flowers and all kinds of birds, including Canadian geese. You had to watch where you walked. But just a lovely, lovely area. And I get across, and before I go any farther, we live just a couple miles from a relatively major airport. So there was always airplanes going over, but you get used to the noise, you don't really pay attention. So I cross the street and I get about to the first pond, and suddenly everything goes completely silent. There is no sound at all. And at first I think, what's going on? And then I notice there's no cars, there's no people. There's still birds and flowers and ponds, but there are no people, no cars, no airplanes, which are usually up there. There's just no sound, no anything. And I'm completely freaked out. I just have no idea what's going on. Am I having a stroke of some kind? What's going on? And it lasted, I don't know, probably about 3 or 4 minutes. And then boom, I went right back to normal. And I chewed on that one a long time trying to figure out what it was. And I have a term I use called time slips, which is dimensional, really. And it felt like I walked into a time slip where things were different. There wasn't a whole lot of humans around or human noises or any of it. It was just nature. And it was absolutely beautiful, but it was also creepy.
Wow, that must have been you. I can imagine to hear nothing from all that noise would have been absolutely terrifying.
Nothing, just nothing, no sound at all. The only time I've been, well, there's 2 other times. One time in high school, I went to Denver, Colorado, and I was with some kids that didn't have too much in the line of brains, and we climbed this mountain and we went into this cave that said, "Do not enter, don't trespass," the whole thing. And the cave, of course, it was a real cave, and no sound, no light. And that's the closest that I could come to that experience, except I could see things. So this had happened to me more than once, but this is the only time I wrote it down. So I'm glad I wrote it down that time. So a few years later, my husband and I went out to Arizona on a trip, and we were with a bunch of people. And we were going through Sedona and the Sedona area, but there was a park outside Sedona. And our hostess said, let's go to this park. And by the time we got there, I was just like feeling a little bit off. And I said, you guys go ahead. And I waited more or less at the entrance to it, at the stone pillars and stuff. So they walked up the path and they went out of sight. I mean, I could hear them talking as they're going out of sight. Again, bird sounds, nature sounds, this kind of thing. And I kind of crawled up on one of these stone pillars. Bingo, we're right back to no sound, no people, nothing. Now this was a park where people should be pulling in and getting out and walking up the path. And Nobody. And now I'm super freaked out because I said, oh my God, this is happening again. So again, the best I can do is say a time slip of some kind, because that again lasted a little bit longer than the other one at the medical center. But then everything came right back. I could hear them coming down the path and they're talking and laughing and the whole thing. Birds are singing again. Everything is back to normal. What happens? I don't have an explanation. So the next one I'm going to read, this is in my first book. I'm going to read the next two, only because this happened. I wrote it down sooner and my memory is much fresher. A slip in time saves 9. I've been the center of some pretty odd or remarkable incidents over my life, a few of which I'm sharing with you in this book. The incidents that I'm sharing all seem to carry a message or a lesson of some kind. Some of these incidents revolved around what people call time slips. A time slip is just that, a slip in time. Something that happens that shouldn't have happened, couldn't have happened, but it did happen. Something our minds struggle to comprehend how. So one such incident occurred around spring of 2005. I was driving on Route 481 southbound in North Syracuse, New York, and exiting at the Bear Road exit. This can be a pretty nasty exit ramp, and I knew there'd been a lot of accidents there at that location. I was always extra cautious at that intersection because of that. At any rate, I was driving. My husband was in the passenger seat, and the next string of things that happened all happened at the same time within milliseconds of each other. I was on the exit ramp coming up to the stop sign. As I'm pulling up to the stop sign, I happen to glance over at my husband. Now I'm seeing my husband suddenly with a sling, with a broken arm. So I said inside my head to they, who are my guides and angels, what's going on? Why is my husband in a sling? Where did that broken arm come from? They said, from the accident. I said, what accident? Now remember, all these things are happening at the same time. Now, I was law enforcement for 30 years. Always look left, right, left. And if you're in a tricky intersection, a couple more left, right, lefts, just to make sure. That was a tricky intersection. So I'm at the stop sign. I'm looking left. Now, down the exit ramp, this access road, is a sharp curve, and you don't have good line of sight, which I knew from this. To the right, beautiful line of sight, not to the left. So I'm being extra careful, left, right, left, and I hit the left again. Now I'm just starting to put my foot on the gas. They are telling me your husband has a broken arm for the accident. I'm starting to put my foot on the brake because what accident? At the very same time, Ed's screaming, stop! And there in front of me is this white station wagon with about 9 people in it. I don't have any idea where that car came from. I'm just saying, I looked and looked and looked. They warned me there was an accident coming. Ed had a broken arm. And suddenly here's this white station wagon full of people. So everything happened at the same time. So he's hollering stop as I've already started to stop because they had said because of the accident. Thank God.
Wow. So you were able to change that outcome just by having that vision.
Yeah.
And hearing your guides and angels talk about the accident. Wow. That's really getting forewarned, isn't it? Like right there and then on the spot.
Right there and then, no time to think, just slam on the brakes. So I'm hitting the brakes before I even see anything there, but they're saying the accident. Now he's screaming, stop. And I look front again, and there's this white station wagon. I'm like, where did you come from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank God you're so open, Annie, to listen.
Well, I've kind of learned if I don't listen, there's a payment for that. Okay. This one I'm definitely going to read again because it's kind of intricate, but I want you to get all the timing that's involved in this. You need to know the timing. This is called Penn Central Angels. Now, I do think the angels had something to do with it. I think they did something, and you'll figure out what they did after I finish the story. Angels have all kinds of jobs. We limit ourselves by thinking that the angels can only do this or that to help us. They truly are multifaceted beings. Case in point. My husband and I moved to Palm Coast, Florida in the June of 2009. By the summer of 2011, I was missing my friends and family, and he agreed to go back home with me for a visit. He doesn't like to fly, and neither do I, so we decided to take a train. It sounded like an adventure, and for the most part, it was a pleasant alternative. However, life is full of surprises and glitches, and this was no exception. I knew the only place we had to change trains was Penn Central in New York City. I'd never been to Penn Central, nor had my husband, so I was a little bit anxious to start with. As we rode nearer and nearer to New York City, things began to go wrong. Our train kept stopping for various reasons. The air conditioning went out in some cars, so it had to be stopped to fix it. Then there was something on the tracks, so we stopped again. And this kept happening. We kept stopping. What had been about a 2-hour window of time between the arriving train and the train we had to leave on was disappearing. I was watching the Amtrak app on my phone, hoping that maybe our train was going to be late coming in, but no, it was on time. I heard other passengers on their phone calling Amtrak and complaining. As I watched out our window of time close down to less than 10 minutes between the trains. I called Amtrak again. I asked if they would put us on the next outgoing train at their expense. I really didn't get a good answer at that. However, they did say the next train going to Syracuse was 24 hours later. Now I was really panicking. Eventually, we were down to 3 minutes between trains. Even for a seasoned traveler, this would have been nigh on impossible, much less for two people who had never been to Penn Central and had no idea where we were supposed to go. And remember that my husband was disabled, so he couldn't really run all that fast either. As we pulled into the station, hubby and I each had our luggage in tow, and we were ready to run. I was pleading with my angels to please make this come out okay somehow. I had already been praying for at least an hour, knowing we were looking at quite the challenge. I continued to pray as Ed and I dashed off the train and wondered what to do next. At the time, this occurred to us that neither of us knew what we were doing, and we weren't in top physical shape either. There was a whole bunch of people all running up a set of stairs, so we did too. We ran as fast as we could on those people-filled stairs with our luggage dragging behind. Once we hit the main center of Penn Central, once again, we looked around wildly, wondering where we're supposed to go next. I saw a long line of people waiting to get on a train, and we ran toward them. I was also carrying Ed's cane with me, and it was flopping to one side as I ran, smacking people as I ran past them. We got into that line, and then I tried to find someone to tell us if we were in the right line. I finally saw someone in uniform and asked him if this was the line to go to Syracuse, New York. He said yes. So we followed this line back downstairs to the platform to a train. There was no hint exactly where our train was, but once again, I just trusted my angels that we would get to where we're supposed to be. The line began to move some minutes later, and down the stairs, Ed and I went, following others that seemed to know where they were going and what they were doing. We climbed onto a train just to the left of us. Once again, I saw a man in uniform and asked if we were on the train to Syracuse, and he said yes. Now here we go. I looked at my watch. Now this is where we get into cold chill territory. No time had passed from the time we got off. Remember, we had 3 minutes. From the time we got off train A, ran up the stairs, ran through Penn Central. If you've ever been there, you know it's a big place. Got in another line, waited, went down the stairs again, got into it. This could not possibly have happened in 3 minutes. And yet, my watch said no time had passed. None.
Wow.
It said the exact same time as it did when we got off the train. I finally turned to Ed and said, this is impossible. No time has passed since we got off the other train. This doesn't happen. This is impossible. And I'm running through the whole thing that we just did. I just blew it off and said, it is what it is. But that, to this day, I think maybe the angels created a time slip for us. What else could it be? It couldn't.
Gee, that's incredible. It'd be nice to know if there was a way to control these time slips or these spaces in between time. I don't know. What would you call them? What do you guys think? What would you call that that happens to Annie? Like, is it?
Besides a miracle.
Yeah.
Well, it does seem like a time slip. I've had similar things when I've been trying to get somewhere and I'm late. I know there's no way I can get there at the time I'm meant to be there. And I ask for help. And then I somehow walk in right on the second of when I'm meant to be there. And I don't know how it happens. But I don't question it. I just thank them and just think, okay, when it's happened a few times. And I'm just thankful that, for me, it's like time standing still. And they kind of move you through that. And then they put you back in it. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah. It's you kind of go in circles when you're trying to figure it out. I've had the same thing happen going to work, only it kind of worked in reversed. Because I was usually flying by the seat of my pants down this road, the access road. Our station was on an airport. And there's a big clock on the side, and I could always tell what time I was, going to be late by and the whole thing. So I'm flying, and I would come in the back door just about enough time to grab coffee and go. And this one time I left the house early. I was so proud of myself. I should have been 10 minutes early. I thought, I'm going to have time to get my coffee and just really settle in, and it's going to be great. And somehow I looked at this clock on the side and it said it was like 1 minute of instead of 10 minutes of. And I said, oh my God, it's happening again. So it went the other way. Instead of giving me more time, it took away time. So, but anyway, that wasn't part of my story, but she brought up the work thing and I remembered that. Okay, now, the next two are weird. I've never shared these stories with anybody. My husband and I were with friends in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. And we had been visiting them over near Washington, and a whole bunch of us went over to their camp or cottage or whatever it is in Rehoboth Beach. And Ed and I had the upstairs apartment, you might say, in their house. And it sounds so stupid, but I was looking in the mirror and I had a piece of dirt on my nose and I just brushed it off. That's what happened. My fingers were on the tip of my nose, brushing off a piece of dirt. What actually happened was my cornea got scratched. And that's painful beyond belief. I can't even tell you how much pain that is. So we spent the next, I don't know how long, trying to find some place to get me in because they didn't live there. That was just a camp and cottage. They didn't spend that much time there. So we ended up, I think, at a Walmart or something and used their eye doctor. And at least she gave me drops to take the pain away. But we had a long, long drive home. It was like another 12 hours back home. So nobody would believe me that my hand was nowhere near my eye. No, not at any time it was right here in the end of my nose. There was absolutely no way I could have scratched my eye with my fingernail. And yet that's what I was accused of. I didn't figure this out until the second thing came to light. And I'm thinking this is a time slip, but it's a different kind of time slip. I used to be on road patrol, but toward the end of that part of my career on road patrol, suddenly I just would freak out if I had to go into a strange place with a lot of traffic. And the climax for me was I had a prisoner in the back and I was headed down to the PSB, and it should have been bada bing, bada boom, should have been easy. But suddenly I'm having this panic attack. And I'm thinking, this is crazy. So that was the beginning of it. I eventually got off the road because of that. It was the beginning of it, but I have it to this day. Now, I have never been in a serious accident, ever. I've been in accidents, but not serious. There is absolutely no reason why. They've tried to hypnotize me. They did this EMDR kind of thing to see if that could. Nobody seems to be able to correct this. So my theory is, for those who've studied for a while, we're all living, all our lifetimes are at the same time. It's a hologram. It isn't, this happened and then this happened and this happened. We're all living all our timelines right now at the same time. And somehow or other, those two dimensions meshed a couple times in my life. Apparently, at one point in time, I was in a terrible accident in a different lifetime. And something happened to my eye in a different lifetime as well, only it carried over into this lifetime. That's my best explanation. And it's two of the biggest mysteries of my life, these two things. But I don't know if you call it a time slip or a crossing over of dimensions.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Annie. It's almost like, there's there's two dimensions that can blend momentarily.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes you, like you're saying, that intermeshing. I understand what you're saying, because sometimes you think, or you might wake up and think, I don't normally feel like this. I feel this is not me. And then it'll just dissipate and you think, what happened there? Or like you said, something happens physically and you think, how did that happen? And there's always that. I mean, I guess this is something as mediums that go into trance and connect with the spirit world, we could get these answers. Maybe this needs to be on the to-do list to get something more concrete with that. But yeah, what do you guys think? Do you have any theories around this?
Well, a few theories, actually. I mean, it can be the way Annie said it was for her. Alternatively, and these aren't mutually exclusive. I don't think it's just A or B. I think it could be A or B or C or D or E or F or G kind of thing. Okay, but the other thing that struck me when she was talking is, I personally believe that our soul can have multiple incarnations at the same time in different people. And that nevertheless, when strong things happen to a part of our soul in some other physical incarnation, we can feel that or take on part of that in our own individualized incarnation experience. So I think it's possible to have bleed overs like that, but I also think it's possible to have bleed overs from, for lack of a better phrase, alternative worlds that we are in a similar incarnation. So I think both are true, and there's probably others. So that I'd like to know what Annie thinks of that, but But that's what my view is on that.
That was for years I just didn't know. I went round and round in circles. And the more I've studied and learned and listened, I now fully understand the holographic universe where we're living all our lifetimes all at the same time. Very similar just to the way you were explaining it. It's all us, but we are living different incarnations. So even if I thought I was living in 1812, it's actually happening now. And I know that's going to turn people's heads upside down when they hear that. And it takes a while to really get yourself on board with us, but there's wonderful scientific explanations for that. So I kind of think, and it's just relatively recently, I'm thinking this was dimensional crossover.
Right. And I don't think English has progressed to the point where we can adequately describe this stuff in words. It's something that we have to feel and struggle with to probably invent words and describe it accurately enough so that the understanding can be conveyed to other people. Because a lot of this stuff you just have to experience to understand, with the various dimensions and spirituality and that.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Christian. I think that it becomes very hard to articulate what's happening in an experience. But as we talk to each other and have had similar experiences, we're like, oh, I know what you're saying. We can understand it without having to try and verbalize the actual, and describe the experience, because it can be so difficult to put human words to that. I totally understand what you're saying, Christian, because it's something that we don't experience, on a regular day-to-day basis. I mean, some people might, but do you know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, you're having a dream, or, oh, you're having, you're going, I don't know, you're doing meditation, or it's not that simple. It's something that, yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Until you've had that experience, and it's like, that, yes, I know what you're saying. You don't even need to tell me, because I know.
Well, it's very, very difficult to try and explain it to someone else, even what happened. Yeah. And I hope I made sense in my retelling of it, because it is weird.
Yeah, well, weird, I don't know, because we're understanding what you're saying. So, go on, Christian.
Well, what I was going to say was, I had a similar experience probably around 18 years ago in a near accident. I was in New Jersey, and I was driving home about 8:00 at night, and it was dark. I think it was November or December. And I was at a red light, and the light turned green, and I just heard wait. Okay. And so I didn't do anything. I noticed that the semi to my left wasn't doing anything either. And I wasn't going to move until the semi moved, even though he's in the other lane to my left, and then, the car behind me honks, and I still don't move because the semi doesn't move. The car behind me honks again. I still don't move. Then I see this elementary school kid on this bicycle bicycling in front of me, who had just cleared the semi, and was going to the other side, and the semi then started to move. And after I, saw the kid pass in front of me, then I moved. But that was, an interdimensional interruption in what was going on to grab my attention, to get me to do the right thing, to not have that accident with that, little kid, because I couldn't see what was going on behind the semi. So that's just one kind of interdimensional experience. I mean, to me, there are I'll just talk about the two extremes. There's that, which is sort of minimal, okay, where you hear something or, get a quick image of something, and to get you to respond in a more positive way. And then there's something, the other extreme, which would be you're fully immersed in this other dimension where you're basically in a trance of sorts, okay, and you're in another world, in another place, experiencing all kinds of things that are not of this plane at all. And then there's everything in between. So that's sort of been my experience in a nutshell with this. And the total immersion ones are far more rare because I feel like they're, what's the right word? Combination of soul excursions and educational experiences and, just, and I can remember at one point I was taken to this other planet and I could see this other planet and it was an Earth-like planet, except it had rings around it. It was very beautiful. And the people were taller and thinner, and the vegetation had a lot more blues and greenish blues and purples in it than Earth vegetation. So it's all just very, 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 very nice. But what strikes me is that there are worlds within worlds and dimensions within dimensions. And I don't think that there is a hierarchy of sorts as much that they are different and graduated from each other. Okay, it's sort of like a rainbow. Like if I was going to describe the dimensions, it's sort of like a rainbow. And we as mediums oftentimes are walking in two dimensions at the same time. We're walking in like the spirit world and we're walking in the physical world. Okay. But that is the spirit world that is closest to us. It's not like the ultra higher stuff, even though we can reach those if we are willing to go into trance, a deeper state of trance and go there. But it also reminds me of something else. And that was, I was in a class with Bill Kohler. Oh God, this must have been 18 years ago now. And he had talked about a woman medium friend of hers who would go into deep trance and channel this ancient Egyptian. And Bill complained to this entity because he felt he was draining the medium too much and stuff like that. And the entity who had a fairly pompous attitude from ancient Egypt did not take it too well. Okay. And this kept on happening when she would channel him. What ended up stopping that and made it a more positive and equitable channeling experience is that this entity in the spirit world also had, in a sense, a spirit guide from a higher dimension in a world above or beyond his individual spirit world, who came down and intervened and said, oh, no, this is not the right way to do this, and you shouldn't be doing this way. So my question was, well, did this spirit, she was initially channeling, was he sort of like a spirit atheist and didn't believe anything above it? Or what was going on? But my point is that there are levels upon levels upon levels in all this stuff, and we cycle through them. And in that way, in my opinion, God source experiences the multiverse through each of his individualized expressions. So anyway, I didn't mean to go off on all of that. It seemed appropriate.
Yeah, and it does to everyone else out there, because these are general conversations that we have between each other. Right. And for the average person out there, they're probably going, what what are they talking about? You know, spirit guide to a spirit guide to a human, like what? But it can get so, I want to say, intricate. There's so much more than what we actually think we know. And then what we think we know, there's so much more again that we don't know. So, yeah, that's very interesting. So do you think that it was an Egyptian guide, you said, that was coming through this lady?
Yeah. And that's I can't think of the guy's name. It's in my notes, like somewhere. I'd have to look it up. But it was definitely an Egyptian guy. And he was like some pharaoh or minister to a pharaoh. He was some bigwig in Egyptian civilization. So he had a lot of attitude. Okay.
Yeah. So do you think that a lot of his humanness, a lot of his human beliefs were coming through to this lady? Is this why? Do you know what I mean?
I think a lot of his beliefs were framed from his incarnation, and he hadn't grown a lot beyond that, which is one of the reasons why he was given the responsibility he was given to get him to grow beyond where he was.
Yeah. And that serves then, this could be a whole nother topic on another panel, but that then asks, the question is then born from that. When you don't learn in this life, in an incarnation, in a lifetime, you still need to learn in spirit.
Well, one of my favorite sayings is, some people live and learn, some people have to die to learn.
There you go. Exactly. Perfect.
It's so true.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And that still shows that, and there may be a lot of mediums that will dispute that, but it is what it is. That's the story. Do you know what I mean? You can't alter it and change it to suit, a belief that we think it should be, because that's how it happened. But yeah, that's, I love that. And then the higher guide coming. It's almost like the teacher going to the student going, you should not be doing this. What are you doing? Oh, that's funny. But I think it's important. Let's go back to, you're talking about when you're in traffic, Christian, and you as well, Annie, with your story. If this is for the viewers and listeners out there, if you're ever traveling and you hear a voice or a thought suddenly pops in your head that's so random, you think, why would I think that? That is your time to pay attention and to listen. Whether you do this work or not, whether you're a medium or you do anything spiritual, regardless of all that, we all have the ability to receive these types of communications. And these can be the things that can change the course of your life and prevent harm, injury, accidents, and change exactly that, change the course of your life. So sometimes, I'm just going to say, I don't know what voice is going inside everybody's head, but those kind of ones when you're in traffic that tell you to wait or stop, there is a reason for that. And when you feel you need to listen and it's that feeling and that need is strong, you definitely should listen. Definitely. Because that's a message. And if it's happened to you and you don't know why, well, you are now receiving from the spirit world, from a higher source. And yes, it can happen to you too. Wow. Thank you, Christian. But I love the traffic ones because this is so very, it's an everyday occurrence that happens to people. We all drive, well, not all of us, but, we travel, whether we walk, whether we're on a bicycle, in a car, on a plane, we travel. And these are everyday occurrences being out around other people, and situations can be dangerous. An accident's an accident because we can't foresee it unless we get told about it ahead of time. So I do love that. Thank you. Laura. I should introduce you as Laura Lee. I always cut that Lee off and just say, call you Laura. Laura Lee.
Lee was her last name, so.
Lee is my last name, yeah. But yeah. So yeah, I've had very mixed experiences, and I think I was in New Zealand 15 years ago, and I was at the top of a dark sky park in the South Island, and I was with my spiritual mentor, and she said that a light came down from Sirius, which we could see very prominently in the sky, and made contact with me. And after that, things began to happen. And I was introduced to these two. They weren't just mediums. I felt like they were masters. And they introduced me to the Galactic Federation and the idea of the Galactic Federation dome, and how to ask for protection, and how to connect with this much higher source that was very protective of Earth. And the next day, I was by one of the beautiful lakes there, and it was as if time stood still. And I was just on my own on a bridge, and all of a sudden, all these leaves which were on the ground just spiraled up like this, really, really high. And I was just like, okay, okay, I'm not sure who's doing this, but it was beautiful. And then they've gone. And I thought, okay, so things are changing. And I think sort of after that, I mean, I've never questioned that there weren't other beings of some description, because I can't understand how we can think that we are the only beings in this multiverse. So I've always accepted that there are other energies out there, and it's a question of, whether they want to connect with you, whether you're at the right frequency, whether they can come down to your frequency, which is why so much is going on now at the moment about people trying to increase their frequency to reach a point where they can get in contact with higher beings. I also did a course with Tony Stockwell, and that was about an adventure into thinking about other beings, what he would call star beings, because he has Zintar, which is someone he goes into trance and channels. And it was interesting because the very first session, everybody's electrics went, and we all had to log out and start again, sometimes on different equipment. And it was like, okay, it's almost like a signal that something's happening here. And it was very much just about having an open mind and seeing where we could go. So it was about blending. It was about raising your frequency and seeing where you could connect. And for me, it was also about, not long after I'd started the course, I was asleep in bed, and I was lying on my side facing the window. And I suddenly opened my eyes, and there were all these beings there. Now, these were beings that I've never seen before. I can show you, I don't know if you'll be able to sort of see it.
Yeah, wow.
But that was what I saw in front of me. And I was pretty frightened, I've never seen anything like that. And they were just there. And I knew the room was full of them behind me, but I couldn't move. I managed to say welcome. And then I don't know what happened. Because the next thing was morning, but I remembered it, and I can still see them there. And at that point, I started to receive downloads, which is information that was coming extremely fast to me at night. And I would be seeing geometric patterns, and sometimes a number, and sometimes letters and shapes and things that would be changing. And it was, to be honest, it got so fast and chaotic that I had to ask them to slow it down, because there was just too much information coming at me. For me, I was getting exhausted by it all. But they explained to me that they were my star family, that they'd been with me since birth. And I thought, yeah, I do feel as though these have been around for a while. I've just never had any actual seeing them, But they then, I think, because they realised they frightened me, they appear in different forms. So whereas I will see spirit like a lot of people do in sort of white, sort of ethereal shapes and things like that, when they come through, they are very particular shapes. and spirals and all sorts of. Sometimes it looks like exoskeletons. It's kind of quite weird. And then they appeared. Well, another one appeared to me, and this time this was like the shape of a. If you saw a seahorse shape, sort of side on, and it was like that, and then it just had like what looked like vertebra beneath it. And again, I don't know. It looked like it came from the sea. And a lot of my experiences since then are I am under in the sea, and I am a sea creature, and I see other sea creatures, and I kind of felt a lot about water, and I would channel. It was very much about how important the water was. And then I started to channel about light codes and all of these. And this was just before everything came in about light codes and things. And yeah, it was kind of like, wow, there's a lot going on here. But then I had another experience when I was just picking my coat up, ready to go out of my lounge to get in the car. And I saw opposite this figure, and I thought it's a bit strange because he was right by my neighbour's hedge, and I thought, why would somebody be close up to my neighbour's window, next to the hedge? And he was like orange at the top and then black, with like a dark head, and he looked flat. That was the thing that got me. He looked very flat. And he just disappeared through the hedge. And I thought, well, that's weird. But anyway, I was in a rush. I got in the car and I drove up and round and up the hill. And then as I was driving up the hill, I saw him again. You see, this flat figure. And then there was a right van parked. So I thought, oh, well, I'll see him. I can look back in my mirror and see. And it just disappeared. Just gone. And I could see all the houses and everything. And there was just nowhere he could have gone to. So I thought, oh, okay, I'm now seeing something else that's again felt from a different dimension. Whether he was in the wrong dimension at that time, I don't know. But yeah, he was quite interesting. And then I go what I can only describe as astral traveling at night, and I go often to the same places, and I've been in a spacecraft when I am at the front helping with the driving, if you like, of it. I can hear people talking in the back, showing people to the viewing room, I think they called it, at the back. And then as I'm looking out through this enormous glass sort of like panel at the front of the ship, I can see all these other ships in the sky. And they're all different shapes and sizes and colours. And I don't have the imagination to conjure that up because it's not anything I've ever seen. I'm not particularly interested. I'm not like a Star Trek fan or anything. You know what I mean? That's never been sort of what I was interested in. But yeah, I go there quite often. Sometimes I'm climbing up a spiral like staircase to get to certain parts of this craft. And it's just kind of like, okay, I'm now seeing different things, different dimensions. They come and visit me. They were with me last night. I think they knew that I was going to be talking tonight. And suddenly they were everywhere in the room. And what's quite interesting is what happens sometimes is I just see like a circle, and then this hand pops up and it waves at me, and my hand will wave back. And I'm thinking, okay, this is, I know I'm aware I'm waving my hand. So I have some kind of awareness, and yet sometimes I feel as though I'm not totally there as well. So, yeah, I mean, I don't kind of know what the others think of things like this, if they've had anything similar. I mean, I've seen I'm out in my garden most nights from 1 till 3 looking at stars and things. And I've seen lights moving across, which I couldn't quite explain as, either satellites or anything, whatever. I've seen them disappear. I've seen like a flash of light just come like that in the dark sky. What they are, I don't know. I can't explain those, and I don't try to explain something that I don't know anything about. But when I've done from Tony Stockwell's course, we formed a group and we would meet every week, probably for about a couple of years. And we would blend together and we would go up to another planet. What was very interesting is that someone would lead us up there, and then they would describe what was happening, and then they would leave us there. We usually were going up for healing. But what was very interesting is at the end, when we had like a debrief at the end, we would have seen similar things. It was as though we were in the same place. And I don't know how you explain that, because we were all at, some in America, Canada, France, England, we were all over the place. And I don't know how you could all see the same things when you're, somewhere else, but it would happen. So I do trance now, and I'm still doing trance healing is what I'm really interested in. And again, that's coming from a higher source, a much higher source. And I'm just really grateful that I can be involved in that, because I think healing at this time in our world is a really important thing.
Wow, fascinating. But as you say, or was it Christian that said, no, you said, Laura, how can we think that we're not the only people here? We're not the only, life forms. I mean, there's so much out there that we don't know.
A little bit to me, that is the disconnection from everyone else that incarnate souls go through, that they have to overcome to recognize the divinity and spark of divinity in everyone else and everything else, and to realize that we are all one. But that's why the denial happens, okay? Because it's a lesson that the individualized expressions of the divine have to go through to learn and grow, to mature, for lack of a better phrase. I never used the word mature, but I feel like there is such a thing as soul maturity.
So, Laura, sorry, go on, Annie.
I was just going to bring up a movie that came out, I think, a year ago or 2 years ago, recently anyway, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Yeah.
And it ran away with the box office, won all kinds of awards. And I missed it at the movie theater, so I waited till I could buy it. And I own it. And I've watched it at least 3 times. And every time I pick up something else. But it puts a lot of what we've been saying into perspective, that yes, everything is actually happening all at once. It feels like it's different dimensions, but because of our veil or covering or whatever, most people can't connect and be aware that there's other things happening all around us at all times.
So
Great movie if people haven't seen it.
Yeah, I have actually seen it. It's quite fascinating. Actually puts it, like you say, Annie, a lot of things into perspective.
Yeah.
So I have a question based around Laura's stories. Now, do we think that Laura is having more of these experiences because her journey in this physical form is to have these experiences where Christian and Annie, you've both raised similar experiences with hearing your spirit team at lights, or hearing, and being told to stop, and Annie's having time slips. So for those that are listening and watching, you might be thinking, well, how come everybody's having all these different experiences? If we're all one, why aren't we all having the same experiences? Do we think it's because we are here to learn particular specific experiences, to have different experiences for what our soul needs, to what our soul group may need to learn and grow. What are your thoughts on that?
I would agree with that we, in the medium mystic field, have learned to accept a lot of things that happen that most people have difficulty accepting. So I think we're more open and accepting, less likely to call BS on something and more likely to say, isn't that interesting? And really give it thought. So I think that's the only difference between the general populace and us, is that we're a little more used to stuff like this happening, and we're more quickly adaptable to it.
Yeah. Were you going to say something? Sorry, go on, Christian.
I would also like to add that the lessons we learn in our individual incarnations are also lessons that our soul family learns. So our soul family doesn't have to repeat these lessons because they've experienced it through us.
Yeah. And exactly. And that's exactly sort of what I was trying to say is we're having this experience for the soul group because we're all having, I've never seen what Laura's seen. I've never had happen to me what has happened to you, Christian, and Annie. So we're all having different experiences, some similar, but a little bit different. Like Laura's seeing, beings, she wakes up and they're there. And I've never seen that. So, there lies the question. We're all mediums. Some people might be saying, well, why isn't it happening to all of you? Why aren't you all seeing the same thing? And again, it comes down to the experience that we're here for as a human.
Yeah, and I had a reading by a very good trance medium a few years ago, and they kind of brought through guides, and we were allowed to ask questions at the end of it. And one of the questions I did ask was that a few weeks before this reading, I said I had this experience when it was like somebody was putting their arms around me and just holding me. And I said it was the most beautiful feeling I've ever had. And he said, yeah, that's, I forgot what he called it now, spiritual memory or something he called it. And he said that was us, and we came to just let you know that we had you. So I thought, that's great. Anyway, I asked another question, and I said, my finances aren't very good, and what can I do? How can I ever sort of improve this situation? And he said to me, well, Laura, you have come back this time because you wanted to experience what it was to be poor, because you have had so many, opulent lives. And I'm like, no, it doesn't sound like me at all. I'm sure I didn't agree that. I wouldn't agree to that kind of contract. But, it did sort of make me think, that was sort of like evidence for me that, I'd come back to do this. But what I was also told, and some of the ones that were coming through were saying, it's hard to recognize you in this form, in this human form. But they knew me. And it came across that they said that I was one of these souls that would come back to Earth when there were problems in Earth, and because I was a helper, I was a healer. I've always been this healer throughout whatever lifetime I've had, and so it was kind of like it. I've got the feeling, and I've heard this. There's some things by Dolores Cannon when she explains this, and she said that people that were born between, I think it was 1956 and 76. She says people that were born in that time were reincarnated to be helpers for the earth, to heal the earth or whatever. And I thought, okay, well, I was born in that time. But, it's kind of like, I think there are so many people now who are beginning to recognize that we can connect to different things, that there are explanations that science can't readily explain. But that gap between science and spirituality is getting narrower. And eventually, there will be this realization, okay, so things can happen that we can't explain scientifically. And all the things like with quantum entanglement and things that they just can't quite explain scientifically, how these, something so far away can affect something over here kind of thing. But we know
they're coming to the conclusion that the universe itself is self-aware. So that's a pretty, in traditional thinking, that's a pretty radical thing, but that's where the evidence
is leading towards a consciousness, isn't it? It's leading to a consciousness. And being spiritual, that's where we want to go. We want to go to be part of that collective consciousness. So I think people have their own journey. We're all unique. We're all different. Nobody can ever really know what somebody else is experiencing. It's their unique journey. And I think they have to believe in what they experience and don't be put off by other people who might say, oh, well, that's rubbish. You can't possibly, because you know what you've experienced, and you just have to believe in it. And I think the more that people believe, the more will be opened up to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's similar to listening to that voice in your head when you're in traffic. But again, Laura, how many people would be watching and listening this and saying, how are you okay with waking up and having all these beings in your room? But I love the fact that you're not scared. And it's, I guess the more they show up for you, the more familiar they are, the more comfortable you are, and then it becomes normal.
Yeah, it's sometimes they stay away for a while, and then I was ill and had to sort of recover for a few months, and I knew spirit were around me, but they weren't. And then suddenly I'm getting back into the spiritual work, and boom, here they are again, like with the hands and the shapes and all that kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, here you go. And for me, it feels comfortable. It's like a sense of this connection with something other than me, other than Earth. It kind of gives me hope that there is something else that we're part of, and that's what I go with, really.
Yeah. And what an incredible experiences to have, to be in a spaceship. It's actually, when you were talking about that and the viewing window, you reminded me of something that I experienced a long time ago, and I'd completely forgotten about it, and I didn't write it down, was exactly that, being in some sort of craft out there in space and looking at all the different, the galaxies and the colors. And I remember I was like a tour guide, where I was pointing out the window and telling people what was all happening out there. It was the most bizarre thing, and you think, the hell was that?
I know, because it's so real and you're really in it. And then when you go back to it and it's kind of the same, and it's kind of like, how can you go back to an exact dream, if you like? And I don't, often we dream. I'm a forensic psychologist, so I look at and listen to people of their experiences, especially spiritually, what they might feel. And it's kind of like, normally our dreams are connected to do with something in our minds. There's usually some connection there. But this, I don't know where it comes from. But I enjoy it because I am not me doing it. I am a different persona. And I know I'm sort of stood up straight, and I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'm just this person or being or whatever that's in command, that's in, that's doing something. I kind of know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And the other thing that happened was that not long after they made contact, I started to, in whatever traveling I'm doing, it's like they were telling me how to fly. And I was literally flying around places. And I was there, and I remember being in this great big room. And again, I often go to like a university building, a learning building. Whether this is like halls of learning, I don't know. But I'll be sat listening to people, and they're all, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, these people know so much more than me. And then all of a sudden I think, oh, I'm going to fly. And I get up and I start flying around the room. And it's nothing abnormal, because it's people there, whoever's there can do it. But it's kind of like, it's that freedom that I can feel when I actually am flying. It doesn't happen often, but it is wonderful. It is a wonderful feeling. And I'm grateful for these experiences, whatever they are, it's different.
Yeah. And like you're saying with the flying and everyone else is doing it, again, that's almost the confirmation or the evidence that you have slipped into another reality, dimension, whatever you want to call it, where that's what everyone does. That's normal. And you're just carrying on like it's your everyday thing that you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Wow. That's phenomenal. And it is, again, like you say, with the amount of visits that you've had, it's confirmation that there is more out there than what we know. And science, may not be able to prove this. And I say yet.
Yeah.
Because remember when we didn't have DNA testing and now we do? There's all these little things that have come about from, across the decades. So, yeah. And I love when you said about Dolores Cannon. I thought, I just scraped in on those years of being born between, would you say, the 50s and the 70 range?
76, yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I just got in there. And no one would want to think or be that old. But anyway, but I am.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. But, it's always like, I don't want to count back. Oh, no, that just tells me how old I am. Now I'm like, thank God I'm that old. So, I love it. I love it. There's some phenomenal stories there, guys, and so much for the viewers and listeners to take away from. And I would love if you out there in the big wide world, the galaxy, other dimensions have had these experiences, please comment, share them with us, because we would love to hear them. And as like Annie said, I've never shared this with anyone before. And this is how we can the world opens up when you start sharing these stories, because trust me, there are others out there that are thinking the same as you. If I share this, I'm going to sound crazy. But once you broach that conversation and your whole world opens up, and that it's almost like you create a safe space for someone else to go, I've had a similar experience. Yeah. And they share and everybody gets wowed and stories go around. And then you start to realize this is actually really common, really common. And I think that's what this is all about, is normalizing these experiences, because they, like Laura, you said, Laura, they are happening. They're happening because it's your experience. Why do we not question someone that dreams? Because we all do it. I went here and this happened, and, this car flew up in the air and blah, blah, and we don't question that. We just go, really? Wow. Yeah, that's incredible, because we all dream. So I think there's something to say for that. And once we start sharing what we would call unusual experiences, and we live in such a fantastic day and age now where we can openly speak about this without being committed. So
I hope so. My front door.
I can't speak on behalf of all countries and places, but it's something that we can openly share now and across the world. We're all in different places and spaces right now, and sharing our experiences with others. And I think that's the beauty of this technology that we have. And Spirit do use the technology. That will be, I'm sure, as we conversed about this pre our interview today, another topic of conversation. So many interesting topics. It's It's incredible. Oh, wow. Thank you so much, guys, for sharing your stories. Let's end here with Annie. Please, can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Well, I'm all over Facebook like a flea. There's my normal page, Anne McAvoy. Then there's Anne McAvoy, grief counselor, Anne McAvoy, psychic medium, several pages, and of course, my Course in Miracles page as well. And I am on YouTube. You can find me there. I have a website, and that's simple, AnneMcAvoy.com. And Instagram, I pop in there. I pop into Substack. I'm here and there and everywhere.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have a hard time finding me.
Google will be your friend when you want to look for Annie. And I'll put, like I said earlier at the beginning of the show, I will put everybody's links and previous episodes and details in the description below. The description is where it's all happening, I tell you. Christian, where can people find you?
ChristianPsychicMedium@gmail.com is the easiest way to get a hold of me. And put in a subject so I know what you're contacting me about.
Fantastic. And you're also on Facebook?
I am on Facebook, yeah, under Christian Psychic Medium. And I also have a basic web page that needs work, ChristianPsychicMedium.com. But the easiest way is ChristianPsychicMedium@gmail.com.
Okay, fantastic. Excellent. And those websites, they get you every time, don't they, Christian?
Oh,
they're
yeah.
a lot of work.
Yeah. And yeah.
Yeah, I know. No more needs to be said. I hear you. Laura, where can people find you? No,
Okay.
well, do you want to be found yet? Or you want to just remain the mystery?
I'm in the process of putting a public Facebook page together. So I think it's Laura Lee Medium or Laura Lee Mediumship. I don't know, but I haven't put a lot on it yet. But that's how. But by the time, I'll get something to you. I have another email address as well, which I will let you have, which is specific for any form of inquiry.
Okay. And again, by the time this goes to air, because we don't just do the interview the day before you get to view this. There's an editing process. There's a process. And again, as we know, it takes time to get all these social media things together and websites and I will, regardless of when that happens, Laura, I will come back to this episode and I will add it into the description for you.
Thank you.
People will find you somewhere in time, as we know. Thanks so much, guys, for being on the show, and I look forward to having you back again very, very soon for another interesting topic. To view the show notes, head over to themediumstable.com.au. If you want to watch these episodes, head over to our YouTube channel, The Medium's Table Podcast.